Hello everyone. If you would like to deepen your spiritual experience, I am hosting a weekly meditation every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you would like to know more, in the show notes I do have the details available to you where you can join the WhatsApp group that will have the Zoom link so you can attend the meditation class. This is absolutely free. I look forward to seeing you there. Please enjoy the rest of this podcast episode. Hello and welcome to the Bearded Mystic Podcast, and I'm your host, Rahul N. Singh. Thank you for joining today and taking out the time to either watch or listen to this podcast. Today, in this second episode, we're going to be discussing the powerful greeting that mainly Hindus and Buddhists say, and that is Namaste. And we're going to look into how that is a powerful way of greeting somebody, and that there is a huge spiritual significance behind this very greeting, and that it's not just a normal greeting like hello, but it actually points to something much higher and much deeper. So let's get started with this. Let's have a look at what Namaste really means. So it simply means that the self that is within me, the Atma or the soul, honors the soul or the self or the Atma, whatever you want to call it, within you. So there's a recognition that we are both the same thing. We're not different in any way. Our body may be different, our thoughts may be different, our ideologies may be different, our religion may be different, but in reality, we're all one and the same. And this very powerful greeting shows us this and is able to tell us that we are simply the Atma. This greeting just reminds us of that. So like I mentioned before, that it's not simply just a hello. There's a deeper significance, and this deeper significance is only understood when we actually have that realization that everyone is one and the same. When we choose to differentiate between our labels with people, when we choose to be different with people, when we choose to see people differently, we actually disturb our own mind. And our mind, once it gets disturbed, we start seeing distortion. This is what makes us see that people are different. But when we understand and have that realization that in essence we are all one and the same, this greeting, it creates a massive significance. If we meet others with the background awareness that the person in front of me is divinity itself, or is a divine being, or is what I see as God, or as a spiritual master of any kind, or a spiritual teacher, then we treat everyone and everything with respect. If you saw life in that way, everyone that we encountered, everything that we come across, if we treated it with the same respect that we treat the higher power that we believe in, I think that we would treat things differently. We would treat people with a lot more respect and honor. We wouldn't look down upon other people. We wouldn't look to harm other people. So I really believe that when we truly think about the meaning behind this greeting, we would definitely have a different approach to life altogether. It's all about seeing the Supreme Self in everybody. When we are reminded of this word Namaste, it's actually a meditation in itself, that you remind yourself of the Supreme Self. Again, Namaste is a greeting towards the whole universe and not just people alone. Let us not get into the delusion that Namaste is just said to people. No, it's towards the whole universe. We have to have this respect and reverence towards the whole universe, because we're all made of the same thing. We are not made of different things. We're all made from the same thing. So when we see that the universe is us and we are the universe, this greeting again takes us to a higher level of understanding. When we understand the power of this greeting, when we understand it fully, then we understand who we are, and we understand our own power. That actually everything that we do and see and feel is within our jurisdiction. We can do what we want to do. We can feel what we want to feel. All that power is within us. But do we exercise that power? Do we use that discrimination? Do we use that strength to our advantage? Maybe not. Maybe that's why we fall under the illusion of the ego, and it's more safer for the mind to feel that everyone is separate, because if it feels we're separate, then it also, in hindsight, also affects our own self. We start thinking people are superior to us or inferior to us. So therefore, we do not understand our own power or our own strengths or the real self that's within us. So this is really important if you want to advance our spirituality, is to understand what Namaste means and who we really are. It's all about seeing the underlying unity behind the creator of everything and the created, and that they're not really separate. With Namaste, there is that inherent oneness, understanding of oneness. So it's very important that we understand that we're not separate to each other, that we recognize that we're not separate, and that the separate is just forms, images, even misunderstanding of what we really are. That's really important if you want to do that, because when we understand that there's the underlying unity behind the creator of everything and the created, and that they're not really separate, then this greeting itself transcends the material. It then transcends all delusions and illusions that we have. Like I mentioned before, this is very important. We also then understand that this universe is self-creating, and that there isn't really a separate creator. That actually we're all creating the life that we want to live. And we all make the choice, and we all have to stick to the choice that we made. We have to be responsible for each choice that we make. And yes, there may be external influences that make us choose a certain path, but also it's in our power to do a U-turn, or it's also in our power to go down the path of diversion. We go through a diversion and we end up somewhere else. So it's all up to us. And again, like I mentioned, the word Namaste is not about getting, specific on the word, but it's understanding the essence behind it. I really want to emphasize that. The greeting, again, holds more power when we greet without the expectation that the other person should also see the divinity within us, or the supreme self, or the Atma. We shouldn't expect something from the other person or want anything from the other person. We are simply happy in greeting them. We feel fulfilled in just meeting them, being in their presence. Now, if we saw everyone as divine beings, we would definitely interact with them in a whole different level. There would be a certain holiness to our interaction. And this is what sages and mystics have always done and always practiced, is seeing the best in the other person. We tend to look at, I certainly do, that I tend to look at the negatives sometimes, and I tend to ignore the positives. But it's also this reminder when we say Namaste is to see the positives in the other person, and that, yes, there are negatives. We acknowledge the negatives, but that doesn't affect our relationships. So that's the importance of that. Going on to that, how do we recognize the divinity in others? Like I mentioned, it's not easy. It's not simple to do. It's definitely difficult because everyone has different opinions, different beliefs, different understanding of what life is. They have different goals of life. They may find that getting more money is more important. They may have different ideologies. They may not want to be spiritual. So how do we see them as divine? Well, it doesn't matter, because if you have the understanding that everyone is the same, you're going to see everyone the same way. That's what we're going to do. That's the most natural thing to do. It's not something we're going to avoid doing. Also, at the same time, we're not going to ignore people who have different opinions or different beliefs either. We're going to listen to them with that deep listening. There's this concept called deep listening, and I think this is something we ought to do more in life, because in our day-to-day living, because we are constantly just listening to reply or to react. But if we take what somebody says and we think about it and then respond in whatever manner it may be, we're communicating more effectively. And when we listen more deeply, we listen with more compassion and with more love. And if Namaste doesn't bring that out of us, then we're simply just saying the greeting for the greeting's sake and not for the true essence behind that greeting. Why is it that we cannot see the unity in diversity? Why is it that we believe that somebody is different? It's because our ego has allowed us to do that. Our ego likes to identify, it likes to label. And because of that labeling and that identification towards our false sense of self, we do not understand that, or we fail to understand that everybody is made from the same stardust. If we've all come from the Big Bang, then we're all made from the same elements, the same atoms. So why do we not see that beautiful diversity? Why do we not see that beautiful unity? Why do we not want to strive for that beautiful unity? What stops us? And it's our ego. The other thing that I feel that this greeting does for us is that we also become very humble when we understand our origin. If I understand on a deeper level that I am not this body and this mind, and that I'm made of the essence of all creation, that I am that background awareness, if I really felt that I am awareness itself, then that will humble me. And if you just look at the logical understanding of everyone is made from the Big Bang, then why wouldn't there be humility? Or it makes sense to just be humble. And again, when we're humble, we're more open-minded, we're more broad-minded, we're able to see with a wider lens instead of the narrow lens that the ego likes to put us in. And the ego likes to put blinkers on, so we're not able to see the more broader aspects. So the polar opposites and all in between, they are definitely real in our transactional reality. In our day-to-day life, we have to transact with the world in that way. And we have to deal with the polar opposites. The main thing is that, yes, we deal with this on a day-to-day level, but we know that the ultimate reality, or Brahman, that is mentioned in the Upanishads, that is the formless unifying reality behind all phenomena. Very simple. But it takes time to have that understanding. It takes time to really allow that understanding to rest in our being. And that's why we need to be reminded of this more and more. So think about it. If we use Namaste as a spiritual practice, how many times more we would be reminded of our real self? And again, because we interact with people on a day-to-day level, we interact with things on a day-to-day level. If we use those as reminders of the truth of this ultimate reality, then we're constantly having what we can call satsang with the truth, communion with the truth. This is something that we can do on a day-to-day level, practically. It takes time. It takes practice. Nothing is ever done simply by just thinking it. We have to put it into our day-to-day life, apply it, and then we start seeing things as the essence of Brahman, or Brahman itself, this underlying, formless, unifying reality. And there's this wonderful quote by Timber Hawkeye. He has a page called the Buddhist Boot Camp, an amazing book as well that you can get on Amazon, and I definitely would recommend reading it. And he has this saying that I am another you, you are another me, and the journey continues. Namaste. There's a lot to unpack in that. There's a lot to think about. I am another you. Again, the feeling of separation just ends. And you are another me. If I recognize that you are the same as me, I'm not going to treat you horribly. I'm not going to look to fear you or create fear in you. I'm not going to look to anger you. I'm not going to look at you negatively, because that would mean I'd have to look at myself negatively. They say that you treat others how you want to be treated. Well, this is it. if you see everybody as the same as you, you're going to treat everyone very nicely. You're not going to treat them with disrespect. And as you mentioned, and the journey continues, whether we're in this form or not in this form, the journey of life will always be. It will never end. And it's an endless process. Therefore, we bow down to that. We bow down to that endless, infinite awareness that's within everything, that is going to remain even at the dissolution of the universe. Because the journey has to continue whether there is form or whether there is formlessness. It doesn't matter. We get to that point where we now talk about the practical tips. Well, one of the practical tips is that whenever you see your friends or family, just feel the words, feel the essence of Namaste. That you see Brahman, you see everyone as the supreme self, or whoever you have a loving affinity to, whether that's whoever it may be, whichever spiritual master you believe in. If you perceive that person in the other and you say Namaste, or you say whatever greeting you hold important, if you just feel that within your heart, you will feel this overwhelming sense of love, affection, compassion towards the other person. When you see that divinity in others, you naturally just feel happier, and they will feel happier meeting you. They're not going to be meeting you with the intention that you're going to hurt them or, put them down. They're going to meet you with the same amount of love and respect. It's important that when we see other people, when we meet them, when we greet them, whatever our greeting may be, that we see the Supreme Self in them. When we create those feelings of divinity, that also helps in our meditation. So when we close our eyes and we take a deep breath in and out, and we become aware of the breath, again, we can see the breath as the Supreme Self. We're meeting the breath for the first time in this present moment. It's always a first time in the present moment. So when we do that, we're honoring our breath, we're respecting our breath, we're respecting life itself. And this is a practical way to live, a very loving way to live, and a very forgiving way to live. Because again, if you see, or if you experience someone, or if you go through an experience where somebody has hurt you and you find it difficult to forgive, but when you start seeing that they are the same as you, I'm another you and you another me, then forgiveness is just natural. It's not something you have to think about or, weigh up in terms of options. Only if we did learn to forgive more, that this world would be a more peaceful place. The reason why there's so much animosity around is because we do not choose to forgive. We choose to hold on to our anger or these kind of scenarios which never happened, or which happened, but now we think of it differently because our memory distorts it to our advantage. But we think we were good and the other person was bad. Again, this is a very beautiful greeting, which if we imbibe, we will feel absolutely great. So let's recap this second episode. Namaste means that the self, the Atman, the Supreme Self here, within me bows down to the Supreme Self, the divinity within you. It honors that divinity within you. When we have that feeling of reverence, it helps us to create a loving relationship with others and with this world. We see that hidden unity, that subtle unity that's within everyone, within everything. And we understand that this is the ultimate reality. This is Brahman. The more we practice saying Namaste to life, the more we feel connected to the true self that resides within us, the true self that resides within every being that we come across, from the beings on this planet Earth to the farthest star in this universe. The ultimate reality is there too. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bearded Mystic podcast. Please do remember to follow or subscribe to this channel, and do leave a review for this podcast. I'd really appreciate knowing what you think. You can follow me on social media, and I will leave the links below to each of those accounts. I do share small clips on there that you can share with friends and family. And if you feel that anyone in your friends and family circle would love this podcast, do share it with them. Do remember, a new episode is uploaded every Sunday and Thursday. Until next time, take care. See you again soon. Bye.